Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful weekend exclusive of FPL ahead of you, but a green arrow to accompany nonetheless. Today, I have for you my team selection and solving your problems, albeit a slightly different version. As you can guess by the title of the video, you will have a Wildcard 31 draft. I shall also be going into the press conference updates and the injury updates that we've had, and there are some very important ones to discuss. In terms of the assistant manager chip and captaincy, nothing has changed for me from yesterday, so I thought it irrelevant to include in this section yet again. So if you are interested in that, you can go and check out everything you need from yesterday. And then we will have my team selection. Now, given the nature of the benching dilemmas this week, and given how many combinations are available, as opposed to like one player being worse than the other, I thought it better just to kind of discuss the benching dilemmas as I go through my own team selection, and then you can kind of apply it to there. I don't own every player, however, so I will discuss some of the other teams that I don't own just to help you guys out with that. Apart from that, nothing else really needs to be said. So if you could drop a like on the video, I would greatly appreciate it. And equally subscribe as we now push for 7,000 subscribers. We've had quite a few in the last few days, and for that, I'm greatly appreciative. But now, let's hop into the video. Now, many a time this season, we have had a goalkeeper section where we've gone past it fairly quickly. But it won't be quite as quick this time around because this decision was a really close one, and I spent some time on it for sure. Why? Well, it may appear obvious, okay, Arsenal are the best defense in the league, you start Raya, but there are so many variables which suggest to me that it's a much closer debate than. Areola will have Todibo back in front of him, and I wouldn't be surprised to see West Ham and Graham Potter opt for his three at the back structure again, which I think serves them so much better. The primary reason being they don't have a certain type of physical profile in their midfield, and I think that significantly weakens their ability in defensive transition. And with a back three, the type of situations, the type of transitions you will face, well, they can be offset by the system to some extent, right? So that's the first thing. Secondly, he'll have Todibo back. In my opinion, his best/second best centre back, but is definitely his best right-sided centre back. So that's a big positive in itself. And he'll also have Mohamed Kudus back. And what Kudus gives you is something very unique compared to most players in the league, just because he's so good. And it's that retention, it's that ability to carry, it's that ability to operate in those wider zones and function competently there, and in the central zone as well. And I think that alleviates so much of the pressure that you will face from a defensive standpoint, particularly his ability to carry and get you out of those situations and release pressure primarily through that. And even just his ability to retain the ball as well. Some of the sequences I've seen him complete this season have been absolutely magnificent. So I don't think Ipswich will have it particularly easy. Then Iraola has spoken about how, as a team, they're really tired. And it makes sense, right? A lot of them had games in the international break. For example, one reason Clive didn't play against Ipswich and probably won't start at least against West Ham is because he just had 2 games in the international break. A lot before that, the cup game against City, and then it was straight on again, right? So I think Bournemouth are quite tired. That's not great for them. They're away. They're on a slump. They're definitely not in the best bit of form, and they're losing like their talismanic player. Semenyo hasn't scored a goal since January, so he's on a bit of a dry patch. And as such, I thought it could be a potentially good chance to go for Areola. And if you wanted to go Areola over your keeper, over Raya, I think it's perfectly justifiable. However, the reason I didn't do that is primarily because of Evanilson. And every time I watch him at the moment, he looks so sharp. And I'm pretty much just betting on him doing something. And basically Bournemouth scoring a result of that. Not just him, but also like Brooks. I think he's looked quite good as of late, and Kirk has as well down that left flank. So with all that attacking talent, I thought they might have a little bit too much over 90 minutes for West Ham to keep a clean sheet. And whilst I can see West Ham winning, so if you're going Potter, it'll be really good. I think it's more of a 2-1 as opposed to a 1-0. The reason I went into that in depth is because, like I said, some of you will have benching dilemmas elsewhere. So I thought I'd give you a bit of analysis on like West Ham Ipswich just to kind of help you out in that sense. I do think West Ham are going to score, by the way. I would be benching Ipswich defenders in every case. And I would be benching Semenyo probably in most cases as well. And therefore, I decide to start Raya. I think it's going to be Saliba, Kiwior, Lewis Skelly. And then at right back, I think it was with Arteta and Eddie Howe, you can't really trust them. So it's like, okay, he said Ben White and Timber should be fit, but will either one of them be? And if not, like I guess Partey's at right back. The thing with Everton is, as good as they've looked, and they have looked really good. They were unfortunate not to score at Anfield as well. They don't score too many goals. I think they could like just possess a bit more of a clinical nature as a side. And Arsenal still are a very good defense, right? They've still got some very good players. Raya also has an opportunity for a slightly higher ceiling than normal in this type of game, and that really contributed to his selection as well. So here I'm just opting with the quality of Arsenal as opposed to like taking a risk here, because I just think with Raya's added ceiling in this particular game, that'll help him out. Or help me out, at least in terms of the selection, before I close this chapter. Now, this is the first section that may surprise you in this team selection. That is the defense. Gabriel is staying, right? And I spoke about this at length in Everything You Need. I am slightly more open than I was yesterday to the sale of Gabriel. For example, you will save yourself 0.2 if you are to do it tonight, in terms of going him to Saliba, given Gabriel's falling and Saliba is rising, at least in most cases, right? Unless you bought Gabriel at 6.3, in which case it's only a 0.1 loss. However, I think, especially considering I'm still not set on my chip strategy, and I'm really doing my best to gear away from bench boost 33 and free hit 34 to an extent, which we can speak about later in the video. I've had more than a brief look. There's just something about 36 and 37 that I think is an untapped opportunity currently, which we'll speak about later, right? But essentially, I would like the flexibility, and I don't need to upgrade my defense like Gvardiol at Man United, especially because most of the predictors think that Kusanov comes back in and he's playing fullback. Okay, positive. Dan Burn away at Leicester, best fixture you can have in terms of the team at the moment, with all due respect, and then Konsa. Right? A lot of you would like to play Munoz instead and be more than happy playing Munoz given his attacking threat, which I completely understand. So there is no need for me to go and upgrade my defense this week, and I'm happy to swallow a 0.1, 0.2 loss. And it might not even be that, right, if I go and buy someone else aside from Saliba, just to have the extra information that can come from like certain games, maybe like something happened in the Champions League. And additionally, just the increased flexibility down the line. Because as I've said so many times this season, one extra transfer, for every extra transfer, you get an exponential increase in the number of routes that you can take. Burn is obvious. Gvardiol is fairly obvious as well. So why am I playing Konsa over Munoz? Well, firstly, Forest have a few issues of their own. Taiwo Awoniyi has a knock, which we'll speak about in the press conference / injury update. And as such, I think that Forest will be slightly weakened without him. I think Elanga's been so good off the right, and then potentially having to move him up top is a loss if Chris Wood isn't fit. And then the big thing as well is there's no Ola Reina, and there's also no Alex Moreno. So I imagine the fullback pairing of Harry Toffolo and Neco Williams, whether it be in a wing-back or a full-back system, is what you will see, and that's just not as good, right? And I also think not having Ola Reina's defensive capabilities, but also his capabilities going forward, has an adverse effect on the side as a whole, not just in terms of their defense, but also their attack, right? So in that sense, I think Villa profit, and therefore Konsa profit. Konsa's, I think, somewhat due an attack and return as well, so that helps. Just the fact that I do genuinely think there's a bit of threat there. He's good on the bonus system. But most importantly, I think Aston Villa are going to win. I think they're playing really well at the moment, and they're at home. So if there's ever a time for me to bet against Munoz, especially because I'm quite convinced that Brighton score, it would be this one. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that I'm just really bullish on Villa at the moment. I think they're going to win. And as such, like I'm happy to bet on an Aston Villa clean sheet in the form of Ezri Konsa. Now with Munoz, in many cases, he's a good player to start. I would start him over all the Ipswich lot, for example. But just for me, I think Brighton are going to score. If you get an attack and return, so be it. But yeah, I just think Brighton are going to score. I don't really have an interest in playing a defender when I think they're going to concede. He has 8 attacking returns this season. Palace have played 29 games. So he's averaging one in every 3.6, 3.7. Okay, fine. I'll just bet that he doesn't hit the 1.3, the 1 in 3.6, 3.7. Okay, so yeah, that is the defense, and that is why I'm starting Ezri Konsa over Daniel Munoz. One quick thing, I imagine someone's going to bench Gvardiol. I saw Gvardiol bench on the timeline just before I filmed this video. For me, I just think United don't have enough attacking threat and the finishing quality for me to be able to bench him, especially if he's going to play a fullback. He's always got a goal in him from set pieces, and Man United are really poor at defending them. He's a 15-pointer waiting to happen, and that's actually has to start for me. Moving on to the midfield section, and if you see some adjustments with the camera and notice me at slightly different positions, I'm just trialing what is the most comfortable. Like, for example, to sit here and sit back is the most comfortable, but the mic doesn't extend as far, so the audio quality might be reduced slightly. So I'm just testing it out and hopefully finding a solution shortly. Moving on to the midfield now. You will see another surprise. Anthony Gordon for Leicester away is on the bench. And we'll touch on this more when we address Eddie Howe's comment in the press conference and injury update section. But basically, from what he said, I don't think Gordon's going to start. And I'm quite confident in saying I don't think Gordon is going to start, right? And I reiterate, I am quite confident in saying that Anthony Gordon, I don't think is going to start. And for that reason, I don't want to just take the risk of him having a bench cameo. And as such, I'm going to put him on the bench, right? He's most likely going to miss out, in my opinion, anyway. So if he does, it would have been the same thing. But if I really don't think he's going to start, why take the risk? So he's staying there. Salah, Rodgers, and Sarr, I mean, what else am I going to do with them, right? They're all starting for me. Especially if Gordon's definitely on the bench. Like, there's nothing else that's happening there. Where something could happen is Philip Foden. Now, I considered for so long selling him. And before, maybe like an hour before this video was filmed, I really was going to come on here and say, okay, there are two people I'm strongly considering selling him for. I'm not sure if I'll do it, but I really might. And I really was going to, or at least consider it strongly. However, I've calmed down on that idea slightly. Also for strategic reasons, I think having that free transfer will be very useful down the line. The two players I was considering going to are, one, Bukayo Saka, and more so Marcus Rashford. I'm not going to go Saka because I think he gets 65, and I think Everton are always tough. So I'm just not going to do that, right? If Foden's going to start, then I'd have him than what I'd have from Saka, even though I interpret the expected minutes to be similar-ish, which we'll come on to. But if not him, then Marcus Rashford. Again, in the press conference and injury update section, we will speak about how Ollie Watkins is managing a knock or an injury in his knee, to be more precise, and Marcus Rashford could well start up top again. He has the double in 33. He's in really good form. Bookies really like him as well, and I feel like that's more so confirmation bias than anything, but it helps. And I really might want him in 33 as well. So maybe I'll just go early and then just back Foden off. That's the line of thinking that I was going with previously, and to be honest with you, especially with Forest issues as well, I think like it's perfectly fine to go Foden to Rashford. But as I expressed, just because I really am doing my absolute best to get out of free hit 34, I basically want to place more emphasis on 36 and 37 than most people are currently doing. Say Forest win, right? Say Forest win in the FA Cup. All of a sudden, them and West Ham are going to double. How many assets do you have from Forest and West Ham currently? And how many are you going to have by the time you get to 36? Probably not many. How many free transfers are you going to have? Probably not many. All of a sudden, where you could have 6 doublers, maybe you have 3, 4 at a stretch, but then it's not just them, right? It's also, what about like Aston Villa and Tottenham, or Palace and Wolves, right? Okay, fine. Let's just say you have 3 of Palace or 3 of Villa, but you'll have none of Wolves and none of Spurs, and you not want any. Both the doubles are actually okay. For example, maybe you want Cunha, maybe you want even double Spurs. Say like Postecoglou sacked by that point, right? As an example. Or Solanke comes into form. All of those things could happen, and there's a lot of opportunities there that I just don't think people are going to access because of 37 being a blank. So I'm trying, and as such, I think I'm just going to hold the free transfer. Moving on to whether I think Foden starts. For me, it's fairly simple in the sense that like I don't know exactly. I'm just going to bet on it. In terms of the City lineup, Nico Gonzalez for me, lock. Savinho, lock, right? And Marmoush, lock. I think the other 3 spots, one will be taken up in the middle by either Bernardo Silva or Ilkay Gundogan or Matija Kovacic, whichever he chooses to go with in the middle. And then for the other 2 spots, either you have Savio on the right, Grealish on the left. Either you have Savio on the right, Doku on the left. Either you have Savio on the left, Foden on the right, and De Bruyne in the middle. Albeit I don't think that's particularly likely. What I think is you'll have one of Doku and Savio on the left flank, Savio on the right flank, either Gundo, Bernardo, or Kovacic in the middle to essentially ahead of Nico Gonzalez. And then that right 8, I think it's just De Bruyne versus Foden. Now, obviously, De Bruyne has come out with the statement that he's leaving Manchester City at the end of the season. Maybe some sentimentality. I don't even know if that's a word, but like maybe it is. Kicks in and he plays right this game because it'll be his last ever Manchester derby. Maybe like Foden's just not 100% there anyway, and he wants to play De Bruyne. They're both rested now, etc., etc. I'm just going to bet on the fact he plays. City predicts is having him at 80% to play on Jump the Way, which is very good, and I would check it out. I'm not sure. I'm just going to bet on it. I think even if he does start, especially if he's playing like not so well, he'll be taken off around 60 or 70. Hopefully they keep a clean sheet and like he gets 3 points as a base, and then whatever on top of that. I think I'll give him one more week, and we will see how it goes. I'm going to spend literally like less than a minute on these guys, because what else am I going to do? I mean, Mateta, who was hooked on the 59th minute, actually looked pretty good against Palace on another day as a brace, so he starts. Isak, we'll speak about more in the injury/press conference update. He's the best striker in the league. He has been the best striker in the league this season, and he has the easiest fixture in terms of the team, with all due respect. So he plays. And then Marmoush, why would I not play him, right? I even considered captaining him as well, or sticking the vice captaincy on him should Isak not play. So we can just move on to captaincy. Speaking about the forward line, both the captaincy and the vice captaincy can be found there in the form of Alexander Isak away at Leicester for the armband, because he's been the best striker in the league this season. He's in form, and with all due respect to Leicester, I'd say they're the worst team in the league at the moment, so it's just super logical, as we'll come on to in the next section where I look at Eddie Howe's comments. Thoughts, right? And if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to be on the bench, so we'll miss out entirely, which means that the vice captaincy is actually quite important, and really it's a toss-up between Salah and Marmoush. You could probably look into a Sarr or even a Mateta vice captaincy. For me, though, I just don't trust them enough against Brighton. That game could kind of go either way, but I've got a feeling that Brighton turn up and do quite well. So between Salah and Marmoush, I think Salah's just got not a really tough fixture, but quite a tough fixture. That could turn into a really tough fixture if Fulham have a good day. Doesn't have Trent on his right-hand side, probably won't have Elliott as well. That lack of creative force, the Robinson matchup. I don't think it's as bad as people say, but I don't think it's great. Maybe Fulham even go 5 at the back. And yeah, for those reasons, especially when I've repeatedly spoken about how I think Marmoush has a goal scoring gene, look good against Leicester. I think against Man United he'll have some success as well. I'm just going to go with Marmoush. And yeah, that's about it for the team. Look, 31 was never going to be the strongest 11 you've ever seen, but I'm still relatively happy with it. Aside from Foden, there's no real glaring issue at all, and he's not really a glaring issue in his own right. Okay, fine, let's just say he's a coin flip to start. If he does start, you've got 70 minutes-ish of the Premier League Player of the Year playing in his preferred position with more responsibilities to score goals because Haaland is out. He could turn it on, right? He's done that in the past. Hopefully, he can do that again. If you would like to improve your chances of finishing the season strongly, then consider joining our community, where you will find access to perks such as our exclusive WhatsApp community group, which is the major benefit of joining, because you can interact on a regular basis with so many brilliant managers who are having wonderful, magnificent seasons this time around. In addition, you have access to exclusive football analysis and the ability to establish new relationships. Not only that, you will also have access to our 1-hour Q&A weekly Zoom calls if you become a Diamond member, and you can get personalized advice for your team, not only for that week, but weeks going forward. Just being in a group where people talk FPL pretty much all day and all the time just will give you new ideas and even help to keep the motivation going, just to keep going throughout the season, even in tough times. So if that sounds good and you would like to finish the season in a strong fashion, then consider joining with a Ko-Fi link in the description below. I very much look forward to seeing you in there. Given we have spoken about it quite a bit, this is more so an evidence bit. Given we have spoken about Newcastle in particular quite a bit, I shall not go through everything again, but I shall read you the quotes for those of you who are watching with YouTube in your pocket. On Anthony Gordon, Eddie Howe said, he hasn't yet returned to full training. He's another one we're monitoring. He's still recovering from a really bad knock he got for England. He's still got huge bruising on his leg. He's done individual training. He's not done group training. He's still not feeling 100% pain-free. So again, let's wait and see. Now, the reason I read that a little bit slowly and in a slightly disjointed manner is because the writing for me on the screen is extremely small. So I really had to focus. That is from Ben Dinnery, his account on X, and I would definitely recommend you go and follow him. Very useful. That really doesn't sound too positive regarding Gordon. And not only that, he went on to praise Barnes as well. So for those reasons, that's why I'm just happy sticking Anthony Gordon on the bench and keeping him there. And then Eddie Howe said on the availability, see what I mean, on the availability of Isak and Trippier. We will wait and see today. Of course, I had medical updates yesterday, but I will see them for the first time today. Hopefully they are feeling okay. I don't think we have any big injuries from Wednesday night, but we have certainly got a few niggles. Let's wait and see. Isak felt something in the warm-up midweek and came off as a precaution due to a groin issue. Trippier also reported a cramp sensation in his groin that saw him taken off. Like I said, it really is so small on the screen. That, for me, sounds a lot more positive. Just in general as well, as I mentioned yesterday, when Isak has these kind of issues, he usually just plays anyway. And with Trippier, I'm not as convinced that he'll play, but just given the lack of depth, I think he'll come through and play for them. They have a break after that, right? Then it's a Monday-Sunday split, and they don't have any other games in any other cups this season. So I think Isak plays, I think Trippier plays, and I don't think Gordon does. Or at least he doesn't start at a bare minimum. Quite confident in saying that. Nuno Espirito Santo told us that Taiwo Awoniyi might have a knock, and as I discussed earlier, Ola Aina is out due to an injury, and Moreno is out due to his loan spell from Villa. So, as I explained previously, the implications of that, don't think that's particularly good for them in any sense. I think that's much better for Villa. You can go and check the analysis out in the defender section, should you have just skipped here. And then Unai Emery discussed how Ollie Watkins has been managing an injury in his right knee, I believe it was. Again, spoke about that in the section in the midfield when I was speaking about Foden to Rashford potentially. As such, I personally just think that he won't. FPL Villain as well said that his prediction, at least, is that Watkins doesn't start and Rashford starts up top. So make of that what you will, but I do think it's certainly good for Marcus Rashford's prospects this week. And in terms of playing not just 60, 65 minutes, but 90, let's say Watkins comes on, which he probably does. You could see Rashford move to the left. I don't think that's the most unlikely thing to happen, especially if Asensio is going to start in the middle and they're going to persist with him as a 10 for the whole game. That could certainly happen, especially when Leon Bailey's not exactly knocking on the door due to fitness concerns. Finally, for this video, a Wildcard 31 draft. Now, what you will notice is this is extremely similar to my Wildcard 30 team. And the reason for that is I wouldn't have picked a team in 30 that I didn't like in 31, right? Because there really was not much difference between the Wildcards in 30 and 31. 13 out of the 15 are the same. You could even argue 14 is because I've just gone Gabriel to Saliba. I thought, okay, we'll persist with the double Arsenal defense considering we're on wildcard and not get too mixy with the strategy. And then Foden, because I'm not sure on his minutes, because I would like Rashford in 33, simply becomes Rashford because I'm not secure on Foden's minutes. The plan for this type of draft, on the assumption you're free at 34, just be Gordon to Saka in 33, and then equally Burn to whoever you like in 33. For a very strong bench boost, of Areola, Alexander Isak on a bench boost away at Villa is quite something. Ezri Konsa with a double is quite something, and then Burn to whoever you like. Let's just say you go Kilman. You've got Areola and Kilman at home to Southampton. You've got a Konsa double for Newcastle away, Newcastle at home, City away. And you've got Alexander Isak away at Villa. That is a really good bench boost. And you can have that with this draft. There are a couple of things to discuss here. I think firstly and foremost, you don't have to 100% go Mohamed Salah. Fulham away is quite tough. I don't think West Ham at home is as bad, but I don't think it's going to be easy. Right? You saw what they did away at the Emirates, and if they're not to have Trent for that game as well, without that creative force, which Arsenal did not have, it can make it very difficult. 33 is the one though, right? Away. And that's why for me, I still persisted with him and kept him in this draft and kept him in my own draft in Wildcard 30. The other thing that you could discuss is just abandoning, putting all your eggs in one basket for bench boost 33. You can still bench boost 33 and just delay the free hit potentially by just saving transfers and not optimizing it. That's something you could do. And in which case you would probably want a Forest defender. So in 33, because it wouldn't matter so much, Burn becomes a Forest defender. Or you just say, you know what? I don't really care about someone like, William Saliba, or I don't really care about Daniel Munoz. I'm just going to start with a Forest defender. You have Sells instead of Areola, etc., etc. Right? But for me, this will be my Wildcard 31 team, and not much has changed from my analysis on Wildcard 30. Oh, the other talking point is that I've got Gordon. I think it's 9 days until he plays Man United. That should be enough for him to recover, right? And I still want him over Jacob Murphy for that double. Naturally, though, if you didn't, you could just go Murphy there. You'd have loads of money in the bank and you could spend it as you please. Albeit, there's not really anywhere to go. And that is all she wrote for Game Week 31's content, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do drop a like on it. In terms of transfer plans, I imagine they'll come out after the Leicester-Newcastle game, after 31 as opposed to the Sunday. I'll kind of see how things develop and go from there. But you may very well see me Monday/Tuesday as opposed to Sunday/Monday. Apart from that, I wish you the very best of luck for the game week. Drop your questions in the comments below and I'll try and get to as many as possible. But in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend and best of luck this game week. Goodbye.